This is Eric with United Realty. How are you? I'm going to give you some rough information. I'm going to go to the association and show you what I'd be working from in order to give you a valuation, our best guess as to what other buyers and sellers have agreed to buy and sell at. And, they spent years maybe trying to figure it out. So we can get the answer sheet, so to speak, just by looking at what worked for them on both sides, the buyers and the sellers. I put together a series of videos for my buyers and sellers so they understand the language, the valuation process, how things are done, the commissions that we were talking about, the adjusted net, what consists of the adjusted net, the contracts, the escrow, the clauses. It covers a lot. And as far as this is great. And these should be the used values, the current used values, price as of today. So I'm going to assume, it doesn't say it, but I'm going to assume that if I went on eBay, the dry cleaner machine for $35,000, we could all buy that same piece of equipment for $35,000. And I would make a column. I would tighten all this up, maybe add a model number, a color, when it was bought. So we'll just get this organized a little bit. We'll make it neater and come up with some sort of a total that the buyers would also agree with, that they could also feel comfortable with. As far as the financials are concerned, gross, 6 months, great. If we can get 9 months, that would be even better. See, it doesn't say anywhere on here. It just says time period. It should say January 1st, 2021 to the end of June 2021. Or preferably, it would be 9 months because we're already in October if you have that available. And then it's only 25% to annualize instead of 50% to annualize. I see this is the deposits, and I added it up and I saw that's what it totaled. Is there anything that did not make it into the bank for whatever reason? That's an interesting question because that would become profit down here on the bottom. So if there was another $10,000, $20,000 that for whatever reason didn't go into the bank, we would add it down here. Is there anything in these expenses, like here's a big one of 21, is there any personal expense in here, any personal expense? You had mentioned a few items. I need to know what line it came from, because what I do is I write it to the right and I write the explanation for it, and then I total it out with a new column. I make 3 columns. We have the column that you're showing me here, and then an adjustment column and the reason for it. And then I'm going to have a third column which actually shows this number and how I arrived at it. Buyers are going to want to see what this $18,000 was for and where it came from out of the expense column, because they want to believe, was 21,000 really this number, or was it 16 plus 5 for something different? So there's going to be 3 columns that I'm going to recreate for you once we lock in on this. But that's fine. So if we could just work on that, that would be great. Where did these add backs come from? Is this cash? If it's cash, what I normally do is I write other, and then I add it over here as other. So if it were cash, for example, it'd be 328 and 18, and then I would total it, and that'd be the real gross, and I wouldn't have to put it here. It would just automatically come to the bottom. So I'll play with the numbers for you. I'll show you how it's done. I have examples. So this is the association website. This is the database I was explaining to you of solds. Now, there are actives in here. If I go back, I can show you there are actives. My team ranks in the top 5%, the top 50 offices, brokerages that sell small businesses in the association. We win awards for selling over $1 million a year in small businesses, which is not so easy to do. So listings, we have all different kind of categories. If you are looking to buy a business, which is where our buyers will be looking once we take a listing, it'll be in this database. There's a whole list. There's 2,650 of them, right? But for our purposes tonight, and then we have forms, we have different printable, and it's extremely well organized. We have agents, we have bulletins. But for what I'm doing tonight, I'm doing sold Florida, and I don't really care about the rest of the state. I'm going to do Miami because what's happening in Tampa or Jacksonville is going to be different. It's not that we don't care, it's that we have enough selection here to work from. If I didn't have anything in Miami to pull from, then I would say, okay, let's go to Broward. Let's see what's going on in Broward. And if I didn't have anything in Broward, I'd say, let's go to Palm Beach. But honestly, 100 miles away, it's really not as relevant. It's kind of like saying, well, I have a 4-bedroom home in Miami and somebody has a 4-bedroom home in Tampa. He sold it for 3 times the square footage. Mine is worth 3 times the square footage. It doesn't work like that. So here's cleaning. I have 24,000 solds. Here, let me show you real quick so you know what I'm pulling from. 24,000 solds. If I don't put any criteria in, and I just say, show me the database. See, I like to show and prove everything. If I go and I I want to show you all of them. There's 23, see down here at the bottom? There's 23,390 that my association, I can click on any of these, for example, and it pulls up different types of businesses. And then I can also add the comments to it, which would be a much, much longer page. If I click on any of them, you'll see it changes the type. It tells me the sold price, the down payment, the assets, the price. It tells me everything. So this is what I'm pulling from. I'm going to go to my solds, and I'm going to come back to what I was doing before. I'm not going to show you all the counties because it'll be an overwhelming, irrelevant number. I'm going to show you Miami. I'm going to show you cleaning, clothing. And then the subcategory, there's 5 different categories here. The one that I believe is most accurate is dry cleaning. But for tonight, I'm just doing that. Miami dry cleaners. That's it. Now, let me just show you what I have, and you'll understand. I have 36 that I'm pulling from. But you wouldn't want me to compare you to a business that has 0 profit with only 40,000 in assets because it's not relevant, or 8,000 or 20,000 or 30,000. So I'm going to get rid of these underperformers. Now, just for curious, I'm going to show you how the ratios work and why we have to do that. If you look at them as a group, it comes in at 2.37 times earnings, 189 days on the market, 92% down payment. But the reason it doesn't work is look what happens. This becomes 3 times earnings, 12 times earnings. Nothing that's profitable sells for 12 times earnings. But when you have $1 in earnings and you have $100,000 worth of equipment, it shows us 12, it shows us some crazy high number. So that's why we have to get rid of these ones that are not like yours. If you were not making a profit, I would get rid of the ones that were making a profit. For this exercise, even with this crazy number in here, and if I got rid of that crazy number and that crazy number, because I know that those are anomalies, and this also, the 4 and the 5, maybe there's a building or something involved. But here, you get down to 2 times earnings. And that's with all of them. That's without even fine-tuning it for the dates, the dates pre-corona or current corona. That's also not taking into effect the earnings, because when it's a very low earnings, it's going to look like a high multiplier to the sold price, because this, they're buying the assets and the adjusted net is so low, it's not usable. So I'm going to say only show me the group that's 100,000 in profit or more for all 20 years. All 20 years, which means pre and post and current virus, 16 of them would be in my class. So this is Miami dry cleaners making over 100 grand a year. That's the only criteria I put in. I come up with 1.99. That's an average. If I go a little bit further, and it's 200 days on the market on average. This is exactly why we can't take a 6-month or a 12-month listing, because you can see here, this is a year, this is over a year. Probably this is over a year. Either the agent doesn't spend the money that we do on marketing, could have been a new agent, could have been a horrible agent, could have negotiated it wrong. They don't spend the money on the retail sites. They don't have 10,000 leads in their database like we do. They don't have 33 years of knowledge, all of that. So this is why we can't take a year, 12 months. We go for 18 months. I've had listings as long as 36 months because we want to make sure if we're going to go through all this and spend money, spend time educating and writing up documents and dealing with 100 prospects and all that, we want to know that we're going to be at the finish line with you. But the group making over 100 grand in Miami in your industry of all 20 years, maybe 21 years now, is two years earnings. So when you stated 3.5, none of these sold for 3.5. None of them sold for 3. Some of them sold for 1.25 years earnings. Some of them sold for 210, 2.6. But this is probably an anomaly. They might have had heavy assets, heavy expense assets. But still, people are trying to buy a living for themselves. They're buying a job. How fast can they pay off the investment? But that's not the group I wanted to show you. It gets different. Let's just say it that way. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say what has been able to be sold in Miami in the previous 12, 10, 22 months that make over 100 grand in Miami, right? What do you think? Boom, there's 1. If I showed you the ratio on this, it's 1.6, and it took 728 days to sell it. 15% in rent, adjusted net on sales. So this would be 35%, so a little more than a third of your gross. So if you're keeping 200, if we can really prove that number, this would mean you should really be grossing 600. That would be in line with this one. Adjusted net of 190, that's just slightly under where we think you might be until we actually get to the finer points of it. It sold for 300. 190 brought 300 to the sales price, and they got all cash. Since that's not enough of a group to compare to, I'm going to go back a little further. Let's go back one additional year. Let's include January. So I'm going to say January. So all of 19, which was a healthy year, economy year, 20, and then the 10 months till current. So you have almost 3 years. So you see where I'm going. That's almost 3 years. By the time we get this listed on the market, we'll have all 3 years of information for you. Making over 100 grand a year or more. Let's see, just the one. Only one sold. Let's go back even further. I want to get to a large enough volume where you see some relevant numbers. So here, I'll go even, I won't go to the first of the year. So that's 11 years, right? Making over 100 grand. All sources of provable data. How are we going to prove the financials? Is it an asset sale, tax returns? We got to talk about all that. Now I have some class to work with. From 115,000 in profit to 288. This one's smaller than you and this one's bigger than you. Here's the value of the used assets. It's important that we get that list in order so we know, what your asset value is. Do you have 150,000 in used assets, today's eBay value in assets, or do you have 235? Well, here's 8 of them. Let me do an average for you. 2 years. Right? So you got 2.03. I'm going to call it 2 years earnings. None of them sold for 3 years earnings. So 2.6 is the anomaly. And if I read the detail, they might have something unique about it. And it sold fast. I want to know when that was because we're in a different marketplace right now. There's essential businesses and non-essential businesses. We never heard that term pre-corona. I didn't know about essential and non-essential. But, is a restaurant non-essential 5 years ago? We didn't hear about that. So it's a new economy. So I'm really including false information here, which will bring up the numbers, because what really is relevant is the economy we're in today, where the buyers are dealing with today's marketplace with the different amount of, maybe they had a lower prices, maybe they had less volume, all different scenarios that happen. But this is the number I'm keying in on. I don't think we should really go over 2 years earnings. I'll do whatever you want. We could try. We could try for 10 years earnings, but as you see, these buyers and these sellers were unsuccessful. The buyers couldn't get it any cheaper than this ratio, and the sellers couldn't get it from any more than this ratio. At whatever dates these are, with whatever assets and profits, that combination. I'm thinking we come in at 2 times earnings. You're on the market for, whatever this is, 235 days. They all got cash. You were asking for all cash. We'll take all offers. If you're interested, you're interested. If not, we won't do it. 14% rent. So we figure out the gross, we figure out your rent. We see if you're in line with this class, if that's an average. Again, 35%. Let me go up just a little bit closer. Since I know there's 8 of them, I don't have to go back that far because it's really not relevant. It's, when you go back 10 years, my gosh. Okay, let's go back 5. Let's go back to 15. There's only one. Now, I could do a different county and see if that will affect it. I'm just going to do it real quick. I could do any search you want, guys. I'm here to help you out. 100,000, dry cleaner. Let's see coronavirus. Let's see what happened. Here's 20, January 1st. Boom. When the virus hit, what sold during the virus in Broward County? Nothing. It's almost 2 years. Nothing was able to be sold. It's either that nothing was able to be sold, either they closed, they're holding it. There's a lot of things going on. That's Broward. That's not good. If I take all the dates off, let's see everything that has ever sold. Yep. There was 21 that have sold. Here, it's not going to be relevant because the numbers aren't perfect, but here, 1.97. And that's with all size businesses, the high, the low, the medium, all the times, everything. It still comes out to about 2 years earnings. And you have one that's less than a year, you have one that's 3 years, but only one of them is 3 years. You see, one of them is 3.8. But also, they're making $400,000. It sold for 1.6. That's not us. So here, if I wanted to put a filter on this for all years, I could do it this way. Maximum gross sales, I'm going to say 750. Here, let's just say 750. All years in Broward. And I'm going to sort the adjusted net. 100 to 208. There's 19 of them. Just doing a quick number here. 194. You're right around that two-year mark, no matter how I do it. And this is 91% down. There's a few of them that could not get all cash. They agreed. The seller had to agree because they were on the market for a while. They needed to get out. They said, okay, I'll take a down payment. They held a little paper, 10%. So that's pretty much where it's at. I could do any search that you'd like. Let me know how I can help. I think we're about 2 years earnings. Let's lock in on what the earnings are. Let me do the add backs properly. Let's get a template with the adjustments, the reason, the total, Let's make sure, there's no unaccounted money that maybe will help us get a higher sales price. And that's how I would propose it. But again, the owners are always in charge. We only work for sellers. We don't work for buyers. We work for the sellers. The sellers engage us with a listing agreement. We have the tools. We have all the marketing. We have the team. We spend the money. And I hope from watching my videos, my educational videos, I hope you understand that, I'm an expert at this and I'm usually pretty dead on. But we'll do anything that you feel you want to try. Sometimes people just need to try things in order to prove to themselves it didn't work. Have a good evening. We'll talk to you soon. 954-562-2019, 954-562-2019. You could drop me an email or call or text or whatever. Thank you. Bye-bye.